The dust swirled over the vast expanse of the shipping yard, where giant steel containers stood stacked like colored monoliths. The hum of forklifts, the clang of metal hooks striking against iron frames, and the murmur of rough voices created a symphony of industrial life. It was just after sunrise. A golden haze hung low over the port, as though the sun itself was reluctant to fully wake. At Dock 17, the employees of Rayner and Sons Logistics were already bustling about, preparing for another day of heavy trade. The company was known as one of the largest import-export firms in the region, accustomed to dealing with wealthy clients, megacorporations, and government contractors. Their trucks, especially the luxury Mercedes haulers, were considered the crown jewels of their operations. Hugo Rayner, the son of the company's founder, stood near the office door with a steaming cup of coffee. He wore a navy jacket emblazoned with the company logo, his expression stern, businesslike, and a bit arrogant. He was in charge of sales and dispatching, and he loved to remind everyone that he was the face of the company. His younger sister, Sophia, handled logistics management, and while she had a reputation for being efficient, she often deferred to her brother's loud, overconfident manner. Their father had retired a decade ago, leaving them the business. In truth, their success had less to do with genius and more to do with the gigantic foundation their father had laid. At 7:43 a.m., the yard gate opened with a creak, and a man stepped through. He didn't belong there. His clothes were worn, ragged. His coat was patched in several places, his boots were dusty, his beard overgrown, yet beneath that unkempt exterior, something about him radiated an odd composure. He wasn't hunched over or timid. He walked with purpose, shoulders back, stride steady, as though he had come exactly where he intended to be. Some workers paused mid-task, glancing at him. Who's that? Probably a vagrant, looking for scrap metal again. No, look, he's walking straight to the office. They watched with a mix of curiosity and amusement. Men like that didn't usually approach Hugo or Sophia, let alone stride in uninvited. The ragged man reached the office steps and paused. His eyes drifted up to the Rayner and Sons sign. After a second he nodded, as though confirming a detail in his mind. Then he pushed open the door. Inside, the reception area smelled faintly of machine oil and old coffee. A young receptionist named Mira sat behind the counter, sorting papers. Her eyes lifted as he entered. She hesitated. His appearance was so out of place that she wasn't sure whether to greet him or to call security. "Good morning," the man said, his voice calm and unexpectedly deep. "I'd like to speak to whoever handles vehicle sales." Mira blinked. "Sir, do you have an appointment?" "No," he replied simply. "But the matter is important." Before she could respond, Hugo emerged from the inner office, adjusting his jacket. He noticed the man and frowned. "Is there a problem?" Hugo asked the receptionist. The ragged man turned. "Are you the one in charge of Mercedes truck sales?" Hugo snorted lightly. "I handle all Hive. You sales, yes. Why?" The man nodded. "Good. I'd like to purchase 5 Mercedes Actros 2563 trucks, newest models with extended range tanks and refrigerated attachments." Mira's mouth dropped open. Hugo stared at him, then he burst out laughing. It wasn't a polite laugh. It was sharp, derisive, echoing through the office. "You buy 5 Actros trucks." Hugo smirked. "Sir, each of those costs more than a small house. 5 could run over $1.5 million, depending on configuration." The ragged man didn't react. His expression remained steady. "Yes," he said. "I know the price." Hugo crossed his arms and looked him up and down. "Do you?" "I do," the man replied. Another burst of laughter erupted from Hugo, and this time even 2 warehouse workers passing by poked their heads inside to see what was going on. "Look," Hugo said, wiping a tear of amusement from his eye. "We don't do charity sales. If you're looking for a job application, the forms are outside. We don't need more drivers, but maybe you can join the cleaning crew." "Hugo." Sophia's voice came from the hallway, stern. "What's going on?" She entered the reception area, her clipboard tucked under her arm. When she saw the ragged man standing there, she tensed slightly, but didn't laugh as her brother had. "This gentleman wants to buy 5 Mercedes Actros trucks," Hugo said mockingly. A flicker of surprise crossed Sophia's face, but instead of laughing, she studied the man more carefully. "And he claims he knows the price," Hugo added. The ragged man nodded at Sophia. "Good morning." She returned the greeting politely but cautiously. "Do you have a company name, sir? Or documentation? Bank confirmation?" "I'll provide all necessary documents," he said. After I see the trucks, Hugo scoffed. After you see the sir, listen. We're very busy. These trucks aren't on display like at a mall. We don't host tours for a Hugo. Sophia said sharply, Stop. Her brother's face stiffened. Sophia, come on, look at him. It's obvious enough. She turned to the man. Sir, may I ask your name? He hesitated barely a second. Isaac. All right, Mr. Isaac. The trucks are kept in a restricted section. No visitor is allowed to inspect them without clearance or financial confirmation. I understand, Isaac said, but I need to see them before finalizing my purchase. And I need proof that you're capable of making such a purchase. Sophia replied, her tone formal but not unkind. Isaac's eyes met hers. You'll have that. But if I leave now, I won't return. Something in the way he said it, calm, not desperate, created an odd weight in the air. Hugo rolled his eyes dramatically. Yeah, that's what they all say. Look, mister, you have no money, no documents, and no appointment. We're not here to entertain fantasies. Isaac turned to him slowly. Very well. He reached into his worn coat. Everyone tensed for just a moment. From his pocket, he withdrew a folded piece of paper. The edges were worn, but the seal stamped on the front was unmistakable. Sophia's eyes widened. Hugo frowned. Is that? She whispered. Isaac handed it to her. She unfolded it carefully. It was an official purchasing authorization from the Ministry of Infrastructure and Transport, one issued only to recognized suppliers or designated logistics partners who had passed rigorous background checks and financial audits. The document authorized the holder to procure heavy transport vehicles for government, contracted projects, and at the bottom was a signature belonging to one of the high-ranking ministers in the country. Sophia gulped. Hugo went pale. Where did you get this? He stammered. It was given to me. Isaac said simply. Sophia looked even closer. The seal was genuine. The document was genuine. The authorization code was one she recognized because she had processed a similar one a few months earlier for a multimillion-dollar export. She looked up at him slowly. Are you working on a government supply contract? Yes, Isaac said. And the deadline is tight. I need these trucks. Hugo blinked rapidly. But your clothes. Why would someone like you? That's irrelevant. Isaac said calmly. Show me the trucks. Sophia nodded unconsciously. Yes, of course, right this way. Hugo grabbed her arm. Sophia, we can't just. She leaned close. It's real, don't be stupid. Defeated and confused, Hugo let her go. The workers in the yard watched as the ragged man, who moments earlier had been dismissed as a nobody, was escorted into the restricted vehicle hangar by the company's managers. Inside, the hangar was vast, filled with rows of pristine Mercedes trucks, each shining beneath the overhead lights. The Actros models, with their elegant contours and advanced aerodynamic frames, looked majestic. Isaac walked among them silently, examining the vehicles with surprising knowledge. He checked the engine compartments, the refrigeration units, the extended range tank fittings. His hands moved with the familiarity of someone who had dealt with such machines before. He stopped before a white Actros with a silver trim. This one, he said, and 4 more of the same configuration. Hugo cleared his throat. Mr. Isaac, before we proceed further, we still need proof of funds. Isaac nodded, of course. He reached again into his coat, this time pulling out a matte black card. Sophia inhaled sharply. A VVIP Tier Industrial Credit Card, one issued only to elite-level contractors with multimillion-dollar operational budgets. The type of card rarely seen outside high-security business circles. Isaac held it out. Charge the deposit. Hugo's hands shook as he took it, his expression contorted, the humiliation of earlier clashing with the shock of the moment. I'll run the transaction in the office. But the moment he turned, Isaac said, before you leave, understand this clearly. If you attempt anything dishonest, I'll know. The tone was soft, but the warning was ice cold. Hugo swallowed hard. Oh, of course, I'm just processing the payment. He rushed out. When he reached the office, he practically shoved the card into the machine and typed in the deposit amount, an amount heavy enough to make any normal buyer hesitate. The machine beeped. Approved. Hugo nearly dropped it. He stared at the machine, then at the card, then at Sophia, who had followed him inside. Sophia, he's legit. He's really legit. He whispered. She nodded slowly. Yes. A sudden realization dawned on Hugo, slow, painful, sinking into him like a stone. We laughed at him, he muttered. We mocked him. And if he complains to the ministry, Sophia said, we're finished. They rushed back to Isaac. The ragged man stood exactly where they had left him, examining the dashboard of another truck. "Mr. Isaac," Hugo said stiffly, his voice tight with forced respect. "Your deposit has been successfully processed. We can begin preparing the vehicles for delivery." Isaac nodded. "Good." Hugo's throat tightened. He sensed that he had made a terrible mistake, one he could not undo. "Would you like refreshments?" he asked quickly, "or perhaps a private office to wait in?" "No," Isaac replied, "I prefer to stay here." Hugo forced a smile. "Of course, anything you need." Sophia stepped forward, more composed. "We'll handle the paperwork now," she said. "Thank you for your patience, Mr. Isaac." He nodded politely, but before they left, Isaac said, "There is one more thing." Both siblings froze. "When the trucks are ready," Isaac said, "I'll need your personal guarantee that delivery will be timely. Failure would damage a government contract." They nodded frantically. "Absolutely. Guaranteed." But then Isaac softened his tone slightly. "Good. I'm glad we understand each other." Then he turned back to the trucks. Over the next 3 days, the entire shipping yard buzzed with tension. Workers whispered about the mysterious ragged man. Mechanics scrambled to inspect the trucks twice over. Hugo and Sophia barely slept, terrified of making a mistake. Finally, the trucks were lined up at the loading dock, pristine and ready for dispatch. Isaac arrived precisely at noon. His coat was still ragged. He still looked like a man who had slept outdoors, but the way everyone moved around him, the nervous glances, the deferential greetings, made it clear that appearances no longer fooled anyone. Sophia stepped forward. "Mr. Isaac, all 5 trucks are ready. Here are the documents." He reviewed them carefully. "Good," he said. "Now for final payment." He handed Hugo the credit card again. Hugo processed the amount with shaking hands. Again approved, the entire sale over $1 million cleared without a single issue, and then something unexpected happened. Isaac turned to the nearest mechanic, a man named Raoul. "Bring your toolbox," he said. Raoul blinked. Yes, sir." Isaac walked to the first truck. Then, for 20 minutes, he performed a full mechanical inspection himself. His movements were precise and technical. He checked the drive shaft alignment, the coolant pressure, the electronic control unit, even the brake calibrations. Raoul stared, astonished. Finally, he spoke. "Sir, you handle machines like someone who's spent years working on them." Isaac gave a faint smile. "I have," Raoul hesitated. "If you don't mind me asking, what exactly is your job?" Before Isaac could answer, Hugo blurted out, "He's a government contractor." Isaac looked at him. "No," he said, "I'm not." Hugo's face fell. "But the authorization, I'm a consultant." Isaac said, "Independent. I was hired temporarily to oversee a project in a remote region. These trucks are part of that." Hugo swallowed hard. "I see." Isaac didn't elaborate, and no one dared ask further. Once fully satisfied with the trucks, Isaac signed the final paperwork. Then he turned to the workers. "Thank you," he said quietly. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. People exchanged looks. He climbed into the lead truck and started the engine. For a ragged man, he seemed startlingly comfortable behind the wheel of a high-end Mercedes hauler. Moments later, all 5 trucks rumbled out of the yard, their engines roaring, sunlight gleaming off their immaculate surfaces. The staff watched them disappear down the highway, baffled, humbled, and buzzing with questions. Hugo exhaled a breath he'd been holding for days. "We almost blew the biggest sale of the year." Sophia shook her head slowly. "Maybe more than the year." Little did they know how true that was. 3 months passed. Business returned to its routine rhythm. High-volume shipments, tight schedules, and Hugo's usual swagger, though slightly reduced after the episode with Isaac. One morning, a polished black car pulled up to the office gate. Not a luxury limousine, something more unassuming, but clearly owned by someone important. Out of it stepped a sharply dressed man with a trimmed beard and a badge clipped to his belt. "Government badge?" He walked briskly toward the office. Mira, the receptionist, straightened her blouse anxiously. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you?" The man showed his badge. "I'm here regarding the 5 Mercedes trucks sold 3 months ago to a man named Isaac." Hearing the name again sent a jolt through the staff. Hugo and Sophia hurried out of the inner office. "Officer," Hugo said nervously, "is something wrong?" The man shook his head. "No, quite the opposite." Sophia exhaled in relief. "Please come in." They led him to the meeting room. The government officer set down a folder. "I'll get straight to the point," he said. "Our ministry recently concluded the mountain bypass infrastructure project, the one requiring specialized heavy transport vehicles? Sophia nodded. We assumed it was related to that. Yes, the officer said. Now, normally, supply contracts of that scale are awarded to major logistics firms, not independent consultants. He opened the folder. But the performance reports are exceptional. The delivery record flawless. The transport efficiency surpassed all projections. And the safety record is spotless. That level of excellence is rare. Hugo stammered, so, Isaac delivered everything correctly. The officer looked mildly amused. Delivered, he didn't just deliver, he supervised, managed, and in many cases physically carried out tasks himself. They stared. You mean he wasn't just inspecting the trucks, he actually operates them? Yes, he is one of the finest heavy transport specialists in the country, technically brilliant, mechanically trained, and extremely results-oriented. Hugo's throat tightened, but his appearance, the officer raised an eyebrow. Are you judging by clothes, N? No, Hugo said quickly, of course not. The officer continued, we are sending a list of approved suppliers to our contractors. Your company is being placed at the top. Sophia's eyes widened. Top, why? The man closed the folder. Because Mr. Isaac recommended you. Silence, complete stunned silence. He said you honored your commitments, that you prepared the vehicles with diligence, that your staff cooperated efficiently. Hugo looked like he had been struck by lightning. He recommended us, he whispered. Yes, the officer said matter-of-factly. And based on his field reports, you will now be eligible for contracts worth 10 times the value of those trucks. Sophia's knees nearly buckled. The officer shook their hands, left them a sealed envelope containing the official approval, and exited the office. The moment he was gone, Hugo slumped into a chair. I laughed at him, he whispered, horrified. I mocked him, I almost chased him out of the building. Sophia sat beside him, absorbing everything. We misjudged him so badly, she said quietly. 1 week later, while inspecting the warehouse, Sophia noticed a figure standing near the loading ramp. Her breath caught. It was Isaac, still wearing the same ragged coat, the same dusty boots. She approached him slowly. Mr. Isaac. He turned, offering a faint smile. Sophia, how is business? Thanks to you. Overwhelming, he nodded. That's good, she hesitated, then asked gently, why did you recommend us? Isaac shrugged. You did your job, that's rare these days. But why didn't you tell us who you were, why dress like? He raised a hand politely, stopping her. There are places I work, he said, where clothes like mine draw less attention, where luxury makes you a target, where practicality matters more than appearance. I don't dress to impress. She lowered her gaze, feeling ashamed. We treated you unfairly at first, she admitted. Isaac smiled faintly. Most people do. She swallowed hard. I'm sorry. There's nothing to apologize for, he said softly. You corrected your course. That's what matters. They stood quietly for a moment. Then Isaac turned to leave. I came only to see if the company was doing well. You could have called, she said. I prefer seeing things myself. He took a few steps toward the exit. Sophia called after him. Will we see you again? Isaac paused. Perhaps. He walked out of the yard and down the dusty road, disappearing exactly the way he had first appeared. A mystery, a lesson, a turning point. From that day on, the employees of Rayner & Sons carried a quiet reminder. Never underestimate someone based on appearance. The ragged man they laughed at had given them the greatest opportunity of their lives. And it had been their biggest mistake to judge him, until it became their greatest blessing.